Okay, this is analysis of Lingbane Muta versus Lingbane Muta on a very large map. Apotheosis. A lot of possibilities here. So, Lingbane Muta. What are the ingredients? You have a lot of fast units. Pretty much all of the fastest units for Zerg are being used against each other. You want to think about in Muta Wars what your edge is and how you can protect against an opponent who's trying to leverage the different edges that you are not taking. Zerg players, if you're against a Zerg, you could always potentially make the same unit as your opponent. So to distinguish your style and to leverage different advantages, you need to basically plan out what those are going to be and then adjust to the advantages that the opponent is taking. This was a pretty scrappy game, as ZvZ matches tend to be. Both players are going for a pretty normal opening hatch gas pool. The first deviation is pulling 2 workers off of gas here for this opponent as they take their Baneling Nest. I pulled 1 worker off of gas, so it's still a fairly similar opening. But I've been droning, and the opponent made a bunch of lings. So I see these lings being sent across the map and I think, oh, they want to go for a big attack. But what they ended up doing was making a small number of lings, a set amount, and then droning their naturals super hard. I reacted pretty strongly by making a 3rd queen, walling off with queens, pulling workers, but they're just droning now. They only made a dedicated group of 12 lings to be on the map, to get a scout, to potentially delay a 3rd base. And I made a bunch of lings, so I'm not sure if they intended for this to be the case, but I overreacted to their cycle of units. I'm trying to push back now with some lings and some banes. For me to morph banes this forward is a mistake, and that was also a mistake. You're going to have a lot of those in Lingbane battles. It's pretty important to maintain your composure even when you make those blunders with your lings into banes. So I have an edge of queens right now. I have 4 to the opponent's 2. I also have an edge of an earlier 3rd. But the opponent has the edge of drones right now. And they're using that to mine additional gas. They have 2 bases of gas income and a spire on the way. I don't even have a lair finished yet, so my edge primarily right now is larva. And I'm using that to catch up in drones. And now I take the drone lead. I built a roach warren just in case it kind of turns into a roach game. A lot of matches will include both roaches and mutas. You wouldn't necessarily expect a player to have to pick one or the other. They can do both of those things. So they get out their early mutaflock, just 7 mutas, and then now they're making roaches. But they are still taking an upgrade from their spire. So they hit a pretty interesting timing with roaches and mutas. I'm going for mutas, but I do have a little opening here in my defense. So I'm cleaning up their mutas with mine, trying to defend their lings with my banes. And then here, they've basically negated my queen advantage, and now they have a queen advantage, and thus a larva advantage. I have the larger mutaflock right now, but they've been working on upgrades for longer than I have. So they've finished their +1 armor, and they can go for their +1 attack, and they'll have 1/1. The mutas can clean up overlords, roaches, and I'm actually behind on workers after their big roach attack. The main isn't saturated very well. So now, once they've traded out these roaches aggressively, they're in full-on ling muta production, where they're spending their gas into mutas and their minerals into lings. If they demonstrate that they're going to be putting lings in all your bases, putting 2 safety banelings per expansion is pretty wise. They've defended this ridge with 2 spores. That's a pretty nice touch. And if you're in a fairly even position against the opponent, the defender is going to have a very large advantage of being near spores and near queens to bolster their fighting potential. So like they move this spore during the engagement. If that fight was taken in the midfield, I would have won pretty decisively and won the game. But that forced me to retreat and allowed more of their reinforcement mutas to come out. I'd say the biggest problem for me right now is not getting my 4th base up and droning. I'm focusing a lot on the micro of these mutas, but I'm not even winning that engagement, so I'm floating a bunch of minerals. I did put Lings and Banes in their expansions, but it wasn't super lethal, like it didn't put me ahead. So one of the exciting ways to make a comeback in Muta versus Muta, if you took a bad fight and you're behind, is to go for Viper. If they have similar income to you and they already have more mutas with better upgrades, you're not going to be able to magically pass up their muta count unless they make huge mistakes. Viper is a way to add really big splash damage for anti-air and be able to turn the tide even if you have fewer mutas and less gas. It's kind of mixing in some tier 3 units and diversifying your army composition. So I'm trying to establish a 4th, trying to take good muta fights if I can. We have a very similar muta count at the moment, but I'm very injured in my economy, only 34 drones. The opponent can afford a 5th, there's no way I can afford a 5th right now. I'm just trying to defend. So having Banes means I'm going to be defending really cost efficiently against large numbers of Lings, so it negates part of that advantage of them having more drones and better income. Mutas defending against mutas. I have nothing to defend against Lings because I'm broke. 28 workers, just trying to survive. They do see my hive with these Lings, so Viper is the most logical choice for me. I had more mutas when I was moving across the map, but their next cycle of muta production caused them to take the muta lead, and they also have better upgrades than I do. So I'm trying to fall back to my spores and survive. And then in production... oh, I should start making Vipers soon. These Lings are just a way to buy time and also get a scout what their setup looks like. You can have the mental checklist of what defense expenditures they put at each base. So this base has no defense against mass Ling other than them pulling back Lings. So for me to plan to attack that later is pretty good. And then this base had a spine earlier on, but one of my earlier Ling run-bys killed it, so these Lings, it's only 8, but they got huge value for denying a base of mining and taking quite a few worker kills. So they pulled their Mutaflock home to deal with that, which bought me enough time to get energy on my Vipers. One mechanic that you can use to get energy on the Vipers pretty quickly is use the consume ability on a building, and then shift use consume on another building. So they'll do it twice and top out their energy. It allows you to get that parasitic bomb, and then they're gradually building energy, and you can parasitic bomb again. And you don't have to like look at your Vipers that whole time. The Vipers come out, they're on a hotkey, you consume, rally, consume, and then you focus on your mutas. Building a spore to better defend this base. I had 4 Banes here. I know I'm behind, so I can't really go across the map with my Mutaflock. I'm just trying to use mutas and Banes to keep their mutas back. And then one of the magical tricks to kind of trapping them with a bunch of Viper Bombs or Infestor is give them a really good trade with your mutas. Sun Tzu talks about offering a bait to lure the opponent. So here I have a Mutaflock that is very obviously smaller than their Mutaflock, but I have a big surprise right here with these Vipers. So I'm just trying to cast Parasitic Bomb on whatever I can. If you think about the DPS of Parasitic Bomb, it's incredibly deadly to mutas. And they flew back and I casted another Parasitic Bomb. Now I'm going to get more energy. And that basically won me the game. With the combination of doing this lane run by and then using Parasitic Bomb to kill so many Mutas. It's basically the cheapest possible way to make a comeback in Muta versus Muta. Infestor can also fill a similar role. It doesn't require Hive Tech. Infestors are vulnerable to ground units though, so that's part of the advantage you pay for with Viper, is you get an air unit that Lings and Banes can't attack. Then now I can kind of transfer workers to my 4th, and my Mutaflock is bigger, so I can go across the map and be aggressive with that, and defend with Banes. And then I'm right-clicking my Vipers to follow my Mutas, so they can rejoin this if they needed to use Parasitic Bomb again.